Hey everyone, welcome back once again to Vicious Chats. I'm Tim Vicious. With me today, you may have seen his stuff out there out on Twitch. He is also out there on YouTube. He's a content creator. He is the RingScoops guy. I screwed up that entrance. My bad, dude. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate being here.
And no problem, man. So let me ask you, because I ask this with anyone I know that's in wrestling like we are, like, when'd you first get into it?
Oh man. I was 4 years old, and my uncle came to babysit me, and he put wrestling on, and it was Saturday night's main event, and I was hooked instantly, man. It had to been like 1987, I think. So it's been a while.
Yeah, I get you on that one, man. I grew up in it. I grew up watching it also. Like, if you ever had a chance to sit down and talk with my dad, he would tell you on how he used to go to shows when he was younger in Philadelphia, and on how he was like a heartbeat away from getting into a fight with Blackjack Mulligan one time. And I was he told me that, and my jaw hit the floor. Like, you realize how lucky you are that didn't happen, right? Because he would have killed you.
Yeah, right.
Like, given all the stories that we ever heard about Blackjack, like, no, dude, my dad's a pretty tough SOB, but my God. Oh. All right, yeah, man, I get that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, a lot of those wrestlers from way back in the day like that, like they just don't build wrestlers like that today anymore.
Yeah, it was that old territory mindset where if you came in being billed as this big, monstrous, badass mountain of a man, you needed to carry yourself, because if you went to a bar afterwards, went to go have a beer or two, and somebody tried to try and talk smack to you, you needed to be able to, like, knock them halfway across the room. Yeah. Otherwise, they'd just be like, nah, you know what? Maybe we don't need this guy next month. Yeah, I think we're good.
Right. Or you get built by 9 Marines, outside of a bar or something.
Ooh, that's a deep burn. That's a deep cut. Those that know.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I grew up watching wrestling also. It was just something that, it was during that whole 80s into early 90s over-the-top cartoony era. We'll say the golden era. I think that's what the kids dub it nowadays. But
for the new generation.
I grew up in the golden era, and I said this before with Joey Harrison, who was on here before, that I'm fairly convinced anyone that grew up on that generation like we did, at one point or another when they were little, they were a little bit of a Hulk Hogan fan, but like they were the one that got them in. But you either stayed with them or you were like, nah, he's cool. But you see this dude? Because that was my story, because I did start out with Hogan, but then I saw Macho Man and I was just like, that is a god.
Yeah, Macho Man was unparalleled. Yeah. There's never going to be another Macho Man, Randy Savage.
No. And I have shown my son, well, obviously I showed my son Savage Steamboat, because you can't talk about Macho without talking about that match. That's hands down one of the greatest matches of all time. You'll never convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, WLC, and Tommy Dreamer versus Jerry Lawler at Hardcore Heaven 97 are like my top 3. I will die on those hills.
Those are good matches.
Oh yeah, and I can't help with WLC because they got the little tiny tables and all. I can't think of that, man.
El Torito and Hornswoggle, right?
Yeah. I can't think of that match without getting old giddy and laughing.
That was an entertaining match, you know. I mean,
yes,
despite the comedy aspect for it and everything, like they put a lot of effort into that match. Like it is a good one.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I showed my son Savage, and he was just like, "Whoa!" And it's like Macho was my guy. Like to this day, I still do little mannerisms like Macho Man. Like every now and then, I'll do like he does. If I'm listening to music and I'm in the middle of cleaning, I'll start doing like spinning my hands and twirl around like it had Pop and Circumstance on.
You know, I do the same thing. I go through the drive-through at Del Taco, you know, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, well, like a macho burrito," you know, like.
Yeah, freak out. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Read the name.
The onions.
And make sure under no circumstances, no pickles. If I so much as see one pickle, you will wind up feeling the vast ocean that is the macho madness. Oh yeah, dig it.
I'll take a venti iced tea latte and the cream better rise to the top. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, dig it. That's what I'm talking about. Oh my god. Oh, you see, now I think we're gonna start I think this is gonna wind up becoming a new TikTok trend or something, like calling like a pizza or burger shop and making an order like Macho Man.
Yeah.
Anyone that does that, by all means.
Can you imagine doing an order like as Bret Hart going through, be like, "Yeah, I like a bagel with cream cheese on the top, and I want it excellently toasted, and I will not accept the substitutions."
Or get it like Taker. You will have that. I'll have the double tall macchiato, extra foam. Wrestling orders. If that becomes a trend within like the next 6 months, I swear I will take credit for that.
Yeah, Undertaker's gonna be start shilling out fucking Tombstone pizzas and stuff on TikTok.
Why they never put his face on one of those in the supermarket, I never know. That was perfect product placement, man.
Yeah, they left a lot of money on the casket on that one.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so yeah, let me ask you, Nat. So how'd you get started with like doing the ring scoops?
RingScoops started out as a project during my junior year of high school. Actually, one of the electives I took was a computer class, and the final project was we had to make a web page. It was like it had to be three pages or whatever. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put up a little page about wrestling. So I wrote like a little editorial. I put it up, a little bio about myself and whatnot. It was almost like a little resume, if you will. This was like back in like 99. And not long after that, I was like really getting into computers, like heavily. And I was like, wait a minute. I wonder if I could do radio on the internet. This was like way before podcast and all that kind of stuff was like really blowing up, right? Like there was internet radio, but it wasn't like it is now. You know, it's like it was a
I was 99. I would have been. You tell I'm doing the math seriously. Those watching, I'm actually writing numbers in the air. I would have been 14. So that was like when they still had Real Player.
Yeah, you know what's funny? That was actually one of the first streaming formats that I used back in the day, because it was a lot smaller than using the WAV files. Those were way too big. I was using GeoCities at the time, and you get like 15 megabytes of space. Tripod would give you 50. But then there was a website. It was called Zoom, XOOM, which eventually turned into it was NBCI and then became Zoom. But they gave you 100 megabytes of free space at the time. And then there was a media warehouse attached to that where I think you had like 500 space to put up just files. So I was like, you know what? This is great. I could put out like 15-minute like recordings because the WAV files were so big. And that's how I started doing podcasting. And this was like February of 2000. that's when I officially launched the actual like full blown out website. I consider that the anniversary of RingScoops. So it's been like over 24 years. But yeah, that's pretty much how it started, man. It's like it was a project in school, and then people started going to the page. They were contacting me, and we were kind of geeking out through emails on AOL with each other. And I was like, you know what, this is great stuff, and kind of snowballed from there. Made a message board, and people started signing up, and the community started growing.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Because I'm originally from Philadelphia. I moved to Erie, which I don't know if you know on how the shape of Pennsylvania is.
Yeah.
All right, so Philadelphia is all the way down at like the bottom right end of it, and Erie is all the way on the opposite end, all the way up at the top where like the little chimney part is.
Okay.
So that's all. But I moved up there when I was like 8. I moved up here when I was like 18, going on 19, and I was hanging out with some buddies, and they snuck me into a bar, and they were joking. We were out all night, and the bartender was doing last call, and I made the infamous joke, "Last call for Scott Hall." And not trying to be a dick, but it was just always that joke. Ever since you ever heard Kevin Nash do that one time on WCW, and the one dude caught it and he was like, "You watch?" I'm like, "Yeah." And we just sat there and we just started jawboning around about wrestling for what felt like all night, but it was probably like maybe 20, 30 minutes. And then next thing you know, a couple days later, we were just like, dude, we need to make our own backyard fed. And we started making our own here. And I was doing the backyard stuff before I moved up here to Erie. So once we did that, we made it up here. And then things kind of rolled. And that's where I actually got the name Tim Vicious from. Because me and my partner, we had this idea pitched to us like, you guys are going to be these two badass punk rock kids that, if somebody went up to you and said, "Hey, I'll give you $50 if you go beat up that guy," you'd go beat that guy up, and then you'd beat up the person that paid you for it. Okay. And then they were like, "So give me some idea for some punk names." And just thinking out loud, like, been listening to Sex Pistols, Sid Vicious, Johnny Rotten, and they were like, "All right, Tim Vicious, Tommy Rotten, you guys are the Pistols now. You go figure out everything else from there." Well, okay.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So that's on how that started with me. So I wound up having to, I got basically tossed head first into, okay, you got to learn on how to be creative with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I'm glad you figured that out, man. And, it's that out. So when you wound up doing the message boards, was it like the age old? Because I remember that era where the message boards were like almost like, to try and put it in a rough comparison, almost kind of like when Twitter gets super toxic. Oh, did you having to moderate heavily on that, or was it just like everyone knew each other and they were all cool?
Well, at the very beginning, it was a very small community. It was probably like maybe 6 or 7 of us for maybe the longest time, probably from like 2000 to about 2003 or so. As slowly started to grow, I think we had a couple dozen people by 2004, but it really blew up after that. And I had to actually get some moderators around WrestleMania 20 because I started doing a thing called visual play-by-play, and I would uplink an image of the pay-per-view that would update every 30 seconds, and I had a live audio feed underneath it, and I was doing commentary of the pay-per-views as I watched. And people on GameFAQs.com found out about this, and NoDQ.com found out about this, and they both started advertising it, and I started getting like thousands of people visiting the website every day. It really got crazy. And that's around that time, 2004. That's where I met a lot of my closest friends that I'm still friends with today. One of which we became so close as friends that we consider each other brothers. He came out here from Florida to California and lived with me for a year. and we meet up every couple years and hang out and stuff like that. We're just super tight.
Yeah, I got friends like that too. I got my best friend. I say all the time, she's more like my baby sister. She's more like the baby sister I never actually had, and I tell her that all the time. You're more my sister than you are a friend. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, my son even calls her aunt. So I don't ever argue or correct her. I'm like, no, dude, you see her as your aunt. Sure, not a problem. Never gonna hear me argue on that.
Same thing with my friend, because last year he just got married, and his wife, had a daughter, and she calls me Tito Wade, which is Uncle Wade in Philippines. And so every time I'm always talking to them and stuff like that, they're always like, "Hey, Tito Wade's here, Tito Wade's here," and I'm like, I love hearing that. It's cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's yeah. Trying to think now. 2004, man. 2000. The early 2000s, like right after the invasion stuff, that was a really wild time because that was right at Ruthless Aggression. And I don't know about you, but Ruthless Aggression was probably one of my favorite eras just because it was it felt almost like the Wild West, like where you didn't expect to see certain things. Like nobody expected to see the NWO, as bad as it was, in a WWE ring. Nobody expected a modern day version of the Four Horsemen with Evolution, or seeing a Hulk Hogan and Undertaker in modern day, and then Taker getting a weightlifting belt and punching Hogan right in the face and busting him open like that. I seeing that image is burnt into my brain, seeing them do that, because I do a lot of heavy weightlifting, and anytime I ever grab my weightlifting belt, I don't know why, subconsciously, I always grab it and I wrap the teeth around my knuckles like that ever since then.
Yeah, that time period was very interesting, as you said. I think it was a rebuilding period because Austin walked out, so he wasn't there in 2002 and early part of 2003. And then The Rock, he was taking some time off. You had Kurt Angle and Undertaker pretty much carry the company. Triple H rose, even higher than what he was before. It was a rebuilding year. And I'm a sucker for stuff like that because I look back in like 2002 to 2004. It was very fond memories of watching that. My favorite year of all time in professional wrestling is 1996, and most specifically in the WWF. And that was one of their worst periods ever.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
But I loved it because they would experiment, and I love seeing experiments. I like to see what sticks, what falls off the wall and stuff like that. And to see them finally get their footing when 97 rolled around WrestleMania time. Between WrestleMania and Canadian Stampede was such a brilliant demonstration of planting the seeds, because once SummerSlam hit and those seeds blossomed, we got the Attitude Era, and that was the spark to ignite so much stuff in the entire industry.
Yeah, yeah, it was the 95, 96 era, as bad as it was, it really was. It was it was a rebuild, and I look back at it as an adult now, and I thoroughly enjoy it just because of the fact of it was different. And I'm always a huge supporter of, okay, show me what you can do that's different then.
Yeah.
Because everyone can go out there and talk like this. Everyone can go out there and push this and emphasize this and articulate that. Show me what else you can do. What else can you do that's different? Can you do all that while you're juggling or while you're reading a book or whatever? And I'm just throwing out random BS, but you get what I mean. Just show me show me that you can do it. But if you could do it in a different way, hey, you got my full attention.
Absolutely. And interesting too, because like a lot of by 95, 96, a lot of the guys that were in WCW are now in the WWF. A lot of guys that were in the WWF are now in WCW. So even though it's the same people, they cross platforms, you have new people booking them so you can see them in different lights. So it was interesting to see how Vince McMahon took a Johnny B. Bad and said, you know what, let's make them the Wild Man Mark Merrow or Marvelous Mark Merrow, and it worked. It was way better than, you know,
Johnny B. Bad.
Yeah, Johnny B. Bad. I just said it like a couple seconds ago. I already left my head.
That's
anyway,
all good. I was a big Little Richard fan when I was a kid, so
yeah. I mean, I'm not saying the gimmick sucked or anything, but it was just, you know, he definitely saw way more success as the Wild Man Mark Merrow and Marvelous Mark Merrow until he got power bombed by Sable. But that's another story for another time. But then you got like Phineas and Henry Godwinn. You know, they were big tag team at WCW, but they go to the WWF, become the Godwins, like prominently featured. Going back to the experimentation thing, putting God, names are like just popping out of my head right now. I can't even remember.
A big example. Here's a big example. Having Terror Rising become Hunter Hearst Helmsley. It was almost the exact same thing. The only difference was no snitty French accent, and it was actually more fleshed out in a way of, oh, look at these commoners. You know, I don't have time for you people. This federation deserves a better class of performer, and that is what I'm here for.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And what I was thinking was Tom Pritchard teaming up with Skip.
Oh, you know, yeah. The Heavenly Bodies.
No, after that, it was the Body Donnas.
That's what it was. I always get
the Heavenly confused. Bodies with Jimmy Del Rey was a great tag team, though. I mean,
I get the names confused all the time. Anything's better than well done.
Or Techno Team 2000.
or LOD 2000.
Yeah, that was why I liked LOD 2000. Sonny looked amazing.
But but that went about as well. That lasted about as long as you'd expect it to. It was just like they look the same except new trunk. They're animals wearing biker shorts instead of legs, and Hawk still looks the same.
Yeah, that was a team that did not need to be rebranded. They were perfect as is. They were their entire career. They were perfect. Why they never saw a push in 97, 98, I don't know why, but Vince left a lot of money on the table there.
You'll never convince me otherwise. The Road Warriors are hands down my absolute favorite tag team of all time. They're my absolute favorite tag team. They are my standard bearer for tag teams, and I grew up watching the Dudley Boys in their prime in ECW.
Yeah, Road Warriors, they're in my top 5.
Oh yeah, without question.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So when you made we're at roughly around 2004, 2005 ish. You got the website going. How'd you pick up from there?
2004 was a very interesting year for RingScoops. At the time, it was called WorldWrestling.net. Let me touch up on that real quick. The names, when I first started the website back in 2000, it was called Real Life Wrestling. And then in 2001, I changed it to Atomic Drop Wrestling. In 2002, it was Pro Action Wrestling. Went through a lot of name changes, a little, hot potato there. But I went with WorldWrestling.net in 2002 and stuck with that until 2009. And that's when I saw the most success. We had the live radio show every week where it was almost like you go to Twitch. I had that in 2004 because we had a live video feed, we had live audio, and we had a chat, and I had it all in one window so everybody could see, hear, and type all at the same time. And I had to do that manually. That was tough, but we had that going for several years. I had an 800 number for people to call in toll free. We took phone calls every week. We did interviews I had a working relationship with TNA at the time, where I would talk with the head of Trifecta Entertainment every Tuesday by Wednesday night, we would lock in a guest for Friday night show every single week. And at that same time too, I was experimenting with recording the WWE video games. I saw on NoDQ that Aaron Rift had a music video where he had created some of the horror icons like Michael Myers and stuff. And he had like a funny video of him chasing WWE superstars around the ring to the music. And I was like, you know what? That's funny. But what if I did a full show? So I made like celebrity deathmatch kind of stuff, right? So like I made all the celebrities and characters, and I put on like a whole full-on show with like matches, music, entrances, my own commentary, and that blew up. And I called that show, it's called Slam and Jam, and that blew up just like doing the commentary for the live pay-per-views. So by the end of 2004, dude, I had live commentary for pay-per-views. I had the CAW shows going. I had the weekly live radio show with the interviews. Message board was popping. We had merch. I was bringing in so much fucking content at the time. And yeah, dude, I think we reached our peak with that about 2007, and I got burnt out heavily.
I was just going to ask, was burnout a concern, or did you do something to maintain it? Because I'm juggling a lot of different chainsaws myself with doing the content. I do the Vicious Rants weekly. I'm doing this every other week with bi-weekly interviews and guests. Also, I'm pumping out random shorts on my YouTube page, and I'm doing the Twitter. And I don't know if you've ever seen it on Twitter. Every Friday, like the hour before SmackDown comes on, I always do a karaoke party on there. Nice. Yeah, that idea for that came from COVID. Me and a bunch of people I knew on Twitter, we were all complaining, well, this place is shut down, this place is shut down, and we were all complaining, and one of the things we all kept joking about was the karaoke bar is closed, and I was just like, well, you know what? Screw it. If we can't go to the karaoke bar, we're going to bring the karaoke bar to here. What? Yeah, we're going to do a karaoke game on Twitter. Just simple enough. Record yourself singing, dancing, whatever you do when you got your music on. Do that, and we'll put it under this tag, and we'll make it a hashtag game.
Hell yeah.
Dude, that just sounds crazy. No crazier than anything else going on out there. Point made.
You see, I'm the same way like that. Like if there's something that I want to do, or there's something I want to experience, but it's not out there, I'm going to create it myself. Because I know there's going to be somebody else out there in the world that's going to feel the same way as me. By the way, if you start hearing dogs yapping and everything in the background, I deeply apologize. My parents have guests over, and they just arrived, and one of their dogs is fucking neurotic to the bone, dude.
I get that, man. I get that. I have a dog myself, and she is very much so like Nana from the Peter Pan movie, where she's mama dog. And if anyone she doesn't know comes anywhere near the house, you got to argue like, no, stand down, honey. You're good. We're good. They're friendly. Yeah. And yeah, it's like that, which I can't argue because, that was one of the main reasons why I wanted a dog in the first place. So I'm just like, can't yell at you. Just got to tell you, stand down, at ease. You're good. You're good. Yeah.
I wish my aunt's dog would do the same thing, but this dog doesn't do shit.
That took years for me to do that with her. The second I'd need her to stop, I'd force her to sit and just be like, it's okay. And I have to pet and calm her to the point she would just be like, okay, I'm good now. Kind of like if you had to calm a little kid down after having a massive meltdown.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, that's what I would do. That's what I would do with my dog. If she started getting like that, force her to sit, and I just start petting her until she was like, oh, okay, I'm good. Like you could just, and you got dogs, when they just give that look and feel of, I'm good now, I'm cool, I'm not mad, I'm not jumping.
Yeah, my dog, the most recent dog that I had, his name was Morty. We got him in 2004. We had to put him down last year because he had diabetes, and we had to get him insulin every day. We did that for like 6 months. by the time that we had to put him down, he had gone completely blind. And sometimes he would just like, you know, act like he didn't recognize our voices or anything either. Like he was very skittish. So after we put him down, the vet said that he thinks that the Morty might have had a couple strokes before he passed. So he was, you know, he was God. 10. He was 10 years old because he was born in 2013. We got him in 2014. And dude, he was the nicest dog in the world. Like very mellow, very rarely ever barked. But you know, he would come into my room every night. He'd be out in the living room all day long. But I made like this little bed. I got like a foam, like maybe 2 inches thick, right? Big foam thing. I cut it in a certain dimension. And I went to the fabric store, got some nice, cool fabric, and I sewed it together and made like a case for it. And it fit perfectly underneath my bed. So at night he'd stroll into my room, and I would pull that little bed out from underneath the bed for him, and he would sleep at the foot of my bed. And it was so cool because, you know, he wouldn't bark, but he would like make noises and growl. You know, if like anything would like, if he saw somebody walk by the door or something like that. So he always let me know. So I miss him so much. He was a good dog.
I get that, man. I get that. The very first dog I ever had that was actually mine, I was 18, and I had her up until about 2017, 2018. I named her Jessie when I first got her, and I say all the time, she's the closest I've ever had to a daughter. And she knew, like, and you dog owners get this. You know, if you do the voice to call them, and they give you that look of, I'm sorry, Dad. Because if I just called her, I'm like, Jessie, she'd just snap and be like, yes. But if I did, and me and my weirdness, I gave her she had a first name, a middle name, and last name. So if I called her, I was like, Jessica Ann, that's when she would get the, I'm sorry look. And my parents would just like me, you gave your dog a middle name? Yes, I did. Is that a problem? So noted.
Hey man, these they're more than animals, they're family members.
Oh yeah.
We grow with them, you know. We know them for part of our life, but they know us for their entire life. Yes. And I say this all the time. I'm like freaking John Wick when it comes to a dog, man. I'm like John Wick when it comes to animals and dogs. Like you mess with them, I will go all John Wick, and I have a pen on hand. So let's just leave that to the imagination, folks. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I'll be scrolling through TikTok, dude, and I'll see like videos that are like talking about, you know, animal abuse and stuff. I get so heated, bro. Oh my God. I have to turn the phone off because I get so pissed off. I want to throw the phone against the wall.
Yeah.
I wish I can get up and like beat the crap out of somebody that does shit like that.
Yeah, I have gotten into fights over that when I was like 7 or 8. Yeah, no, when I was 8. When I was between 8 and 9, we lived in Florida for about a year. And we were in Altamont Springs, which is just outside of like Orlando. And it was during tropical storm season. So you would always see these small little tiny like frogs running around everywhere. And this one kid I knew, he collected a big jar of them, and he was just dropping them off of the apartment complex, and I threw them back, and I was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I got into a big fight with him over it. My mom looked at me, "Why'd you fight? Why'd you beat that kid up? He's got a bloody nose, and his face is swelled up." I was like, "He was throwing frogs off the balcony." Okay, I can't argue with you. But you can't go and beat them up that badly. These kind of kids aren't used to fighting like that.
I don't know. In my book, he got off lightly. So
yeah, that was But I at that time I was just like, wait, am I getting yelled at or am I getting told I did right? Because, okay, I don't blame you. Like, because, okay, I don't blame you for doing that, but you can't beat them up that badly. But and 8 going on 9 and having a very and being very autistic. It's you are talking about mixed signals right there. Like, what?
Yeah.
You know,
I totally get that.
Yeah, but yeah, man. So when the burnout happened, you know, you want how'd you pick up from there?
The burnout was interesting because by the end of 2007, I was like, you know what, I want to expand, and I think that was my mistake because that's where the burnout really started to happen. And instead of having the site be about wrestling, um, I wanted to expand and have something else. So 2008 rolled around, very beginning of 2008, I rebranded. It went from worldwrestling.net to brutesports.com, and we added boxing and MMA to the mix. So we covered all that, and it took 2 months. By March 2008, I was done. I closed the site. I took maybe a month or two off from that. I opened up another website at that time, webmasterwade.com, and it started like a personal blog. You know, I would put up, written blogs. I would talk about not just, I'd have, the wrestling blogs once in a while, but nothing major. I would talk about like my favorite TV shows. So like every week I would do a blog about like Smallville, because I was like heavily into Smallville at the time. Um, I would do video games, stuff like that, put up clips. Like a lot of the stuff that you see today, like I was doing way back in the day before it like really took off. And, you know, I feel like Marty McFly, like they weren't ready for it then, but the kids will one day, like, and yeah, 2008. And then like that summer I met my girlfriend. We were together for 14 years. And I would tell her stories about, the glory days of the websites and stuff like that. And she would always be like, why aren't you doing it now? Like, you got all the time in the world. So I wasn't going to school. I didn't have a job. Just sitting here at home, still during my depression because when I was 15 in 99, I had back surgery, ended up in a wheelchair, been paraplegic since. So that was like really heavy on me. And that's why I took to the internet, because I could be anybody I wanted. Nobody had to know like my situation. And she would always tell me like, you got all the time in the world. You're very passionate about it still, obviously. Why don't you just do it again? I would like to see your glory days. So it was like the end of 2009. I was like, you know what? I'll do it. So I registered RingScoops.com December of 2009, which was funny because summer of 2004, I had owned RingScoops.com as a little side project for a friend of mine that lasts like a year. It's like a little snack, compared to like the main meal, right? And I always liked the name RingScoops.com. So I registered it then, started the site, and we started blowing up big time. We had instead of having the site from scratch, I did the WordPress thing. SEO was like really becoming a big thing, search engine optimization. I started learning more about that, blowing up on that. Social media, because like when I got burnt out 2007, social media was still kind of like fresh and new. Twitter really was blowing up by 2010, and was using hashtags and all that stuff. YouTube was changing a lot of the algorithm. I went full force with this thing, man. We did podcasts again. We were doing videos. I had people on there doing their own shows, being ambassadors to RingScoops. And then finally, I decided to chase my actual dream. I've always wanted to be a professional wrestler, but I knew as a paraplegic, that ain't going to happen. But my girlfriend at the time was like, there's other jobs you can do. You're a smart guy. It's like, figure it out. I said, you know what? You're right. Started thinking back. I'm like, look at everything I've built in 10 years so far with this whole project, podcasting, the commentary, and all that kind of stuff. I said, you know what? I'm going to do play-by-play commentary because I've got a decade of history pretty much with it, and I started looking up some of the local wrestling shows around here. And I had been in contact over the decade on and off with Jesse Hernandez, who ran School of Hard Knocks out here in San Bernardino. A lot of his wrestlers went on to like WCW, WWE, TNA, AEW, and stuff like that. So I got in contact with him and I started coming around the shows and I was like, I'm going to do coverage. So I started taking photos and putting them up. And then I was like, can I get an interview with somebody? So one interview turned into two interviews turned into three. By the time that like 6 months in, like I was interviewing like half the card that night after the show, putting everything up. And it was the end of 2010, December. They were doing a benefit show at one of the churches, and Jesse come around to me, and Jesse goes, "Brother, I know you do the commentary. As a Christmas present to you, brother. I want you to set the commentary table and do one match with my people." I said, "Oh my God, Jesse, that would be great." So I went, I did commentary one match, had a lot of fun. They liked working with me so much that they told me to come back for the main event that night. So I did 2 matches that night. And I was like, man, this is great. This is so much fun. And I want to get involved. But I also know politics and wrestling is a big thing, right? So like if I want to try to do play-by-play and I got connections to, EWF and Jesse, I know the commentary team is probably going to think, who's this guy coming and trying to take my job? I did not want to do that. I already know internet guys, especially at that time, internet people, like it's a 180 right now, because 15 years ago, the industry really looked down on internet, podcasters, bloggers, all that stuff. They are so embraced now. It's funny. But I didn't want that. I was already fighting an uphill battle just as that. So I said, you know what? Let me combine my talents with what I want to do. And I was like, wait a minute, I've done live before. I've done live radio, the live video, and all this stuff. I said, what if I get a mobile hotspot? Because they were coming up at the time. I got a mobile hotspot, went to one of the shows. I did a little stress test to figure out like how the strength of the connection and whatnot. And I realized that it would be stable enough to do something like that. So I presented the idea to Jesse, and this was like 2011. I said, Jesse, I want to come out to one of the shows. If it's cool with you, if I set up a table, have my laptop, the webcam, and I do a live stream of your show, and I'll do commentary to it. That way we don't have to worry about trying to like connect your guys' system with my system, that kind of stuff. It'll just be a whole separate operating system. It'll be the Empire Wrestling Federation powered by RingScoops Live, right? He loved the idea. At that time, my buddy Dennis was moving out from Florida out to California. And I was like, you want to be my commentary partner? So he goes, hell yeah, man. So we worked on it because we're friends, right? We can guess each other's next move, which is what you need in something like commentary.
Kind of like,
and I was like, all right,
Bobby.
Exactly. I said, I'm straight laced play-by-play guy. You be the heel color guy. So we would practice here at the house, and then we showed up to the show, did the live stream, sent the file to Jesse, and him and his booker like got back to us like that same weekend. And they were like, we want you back every month to do this. We went up to their 15th anniversary show. There was a big screw up with some of the recordings and whatnot. They had to take our commentary track and put on their DVD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and their commentary team didn't like that because they were like, just bring us in to redo it. And they were like, but we've already got a backup already done. Like, why would we have to wait more time, waste more time, bring you guys in, do all this kind of stuff when there's a commentary track already. So they took
our little accident.
Right. And so then that's when the politics game kind of started. The commentary team was like, all right, now you guys are stepping on our toes. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I didn't cause your guys' production problem. Like, and I'm not the one that made the decision to use my track. You know what I mean? Like, I was just here doing my own thing. Well, that whole summer was a mess up. My friend, he didn't like a lot of the politics, that kind of stuff. So he was like, I'm not even going to do commentary anymore. I said, well, I'm going to keep doing it. And he would still come to the shows. But then they got us one of the wrestlers, Mondo Vega, to be my commentary partner throughout the summer, and we clicked very well. And then an incident happened where I said something that I shouldn't have said. I was suspended for 30 days, but during the 30 days, the commentary team had a big blowout, and Jesse lost his commentary team. So at one of the shows, they called me backstage and they said, "You're the only logical person to ask. Do you want the play-by-play position?" I said, "Hell yeah, I want it." So they brought me in as that, teamed me up with legendary, the expert Matt Sinister, who is an alumni of the Dungeon up in Calgary, wrestled for XPW, SoCal legend out here in California. In XPW, he wrestled, I believe the name was Crimson. He was a very, very popular figure. He did a lot of crazy stuff, man. Matt was a wealth of knowledge of the industry, and we clicked very well. And it was around that time I started, was like transitioning pretty much of like being an internet personality, podcaster, all that kind of stuff. That started taking a back burner. I started doing play-by-play, getting in the business. Eventually, within the first year of me working play-by-play, I took over the website. I took over head of production. I started talking with the camera guys. I was putting together the editing. I was making the DVDs, the DVD covers, running the website, helping with the social media marketing, doing the play-by-play commentary. If there was a screw up in production, guess what? I ran it all. So I would come home. I would set up all my home studio stuff. I would fix it. I'd give them the DVD. Nobody knew of any problems because I was the one editing everything, right? Nobody had to know anything. So it was such a flawless, smooth production from 2012 to about 2020.
That's amazing, man. That is a hell of a story. That's awesome, dude. You know, you got to live the actual dream a majority of us fans always want. Because I can't think of any other way to really describe that, you know? Not all of us are going to ever be able to get the run the ropes or do anything like that. You know, but you got to not just went and worked your way in. And I'm not saying it in a begrudging way, and I'm sorry if it comes off that way, but you managed to find a way in. And when everyone was saying, no, we don't want him, get out, you were just like, yeah, hold my beer and watch this. You basically went in there and just was like that, man. That's amazing.
I had a lot of fun during my run. And ironically, it wasn't even the pandemic that made me stop. It was, I got tired of a lot of politicking. There was a lot of other things that went down. There was an incident or a scandal with one of the referees out here, as far as he got outed. He was on the sex offenders registry list, and he had not been honest about that for a very long time. News came out about that. I personally didn't want to share a locker room with somebody like that. So, like, you know, there was a period of time that I left. I knew about it too. Actually, before news really broke out, I found out about it because I went to school with the guy from elementary to high school. I let the promoter know about what happened, and the promoter said, I'll keep an eye on him. And a period of time went by. He didn't do anything about it. I said, I don't want to share a locker room with him. I stopped coming by for a long time. News broke. He got released. I went back, started working full time again for a while. And I just got burnt out, man. There was other stories I was hearing that some of the higher ups and some of the other promotions that I worked for, they were doing, I didn't like. And I said, I'm not going to be part of that culture. And at the same time, the pandemic hit, and I said, what a blessing in disguise. I could let these people know, like, hey, pandemic, I can't be at your show. And then they would start canceling their shows because there were the shutdowns. And by the time the pandemic came back up and everybody was like, you want to come back and work? I'm like, I'm focused on other things right now. I don't want to come back and work. And then I actually came back last year. I worked a couple of shows for a new promotion I never worked for. It was new to me. It's been around for a while, but everything was going really good. And then the politics started. The promoter, for some reason, had an issue with one of my friends. They had a blowout. And because I was friends with that person, the promoter decided to take it out on me, started making claims about me publicly. And I didn't like that. And I called them out, snapped back at them. I didn't give a fuck if they've been in the business longer than me. Some things you just don't fucking do with another person. And I called him out on it. And I remember we got into a big thing and text about it. And I finally told him, I said, hey, look, man, you spoke your piece. I spoke my piece. Don't ever mention my name ever again and lose my number. And I never heard back from him again. I consider myself at this moment retired. I'm done.
I get you on that, man. Yeah, the pandemic. Yeah, when pandemic and lockdown, or as my son puts it, when everything went to crap.
Yeah,
that's on how he puts it, because he'll explain it, because the day the state of Pennsylvania shut down, I intentionally called out of work that day because I was doing a temp job at a powder coating factory that was like an hour and a half drive to and from every day from where I live. And that part was more emotionally draining than the actual job itself. The job itself wasn't the problem, but I called out that day because I had an interview set up with a job that was like within walking distance from my house. Oh, and then that happened, and I called them up and I was like, hey, listen, given everything going on, do you still want me to come in? Well, given the governor is shutting everything down, we can't take anyone in right now for interviews. When this clears up, we're definitely going to keep your name near the top of the list for callbacks. Never got a call back though, but it was okay. Well, now I got to figure it out, and I'm back at square one. And then right after I got off the phone from there, that's when the news reports came that kids had to get picked up from schools because the school buildings were shut down. So then I grabbed my dad. I was like, yo, Pop, we got to go get the baby. And he knew right away what I meant by that. And then I sat him down. I explained everything with COVID and all that jazz. And he handled it better than most adults I've seen. And I made this joke all the time during lockdown. I was a little weird, but it felt like I was 14 all over again. The only difference was I had access to TV, video game, and internet. I had TV, video game, and internet privileges. I was only allowed to have to go shopping or walk my dog, really. Yeah. That was it. It was like I was 14 and I was in trouble all over again. Those are my only times I was allowed outside. The only difference is I had TV privileges.
COVID was a weird time, man. I tell you what really got me through COVID was that game Animal Crossing had come out for the Switch.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
had never played Animal Crossing in my life before that.
You never did?
Nah, never.
I had it when it came out on GameCube.
Okay. I heard a lot of stuff about it. I was just never like, what is it about? But when I started seeing videos of what you can do, and I'm like, I'm going to get the game. Dude, that took over like that whole first year of COVID. I played that religiously every day, and it got me through it.
Yeah, my son. Well, and here's the funny thing. My son convinced me to buy a Switch Lite like a week before everything went to hell and everything shut down. So that's again a happy little accident right there, because he talked me into buying a Switch Lite a week before the state shut down, and we wound up, because we were playing Smash. We would play Smash Brothers. He would play on the TV. I'd just play on my Switch, and we would do that. And then we were doing a couple different games. And then once we got Animal Crossing, he would do his thing, and he made whatever. He made his random village. I made mine, but yeah, dude, it was crazy. It was a crazy time, definitely. But man, I thank you for taking the time to come out on here today. I say this to everyone, and I do mean it from the bottom of my heart. You could have been out there doing a million different things. Instead, you chose to sit here. You got my thanks and my gratitude for that. You're more than welcome to come back at any time, man.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. Like, I appreciate you having me in mind and inviting me to come on and taking time out to have me on. And the feeling is very mutual. Whenever I get back and up and running on doing podcasts and shows and stuff like that, dude, you have an open door policy. You can come in anytime you want. Just let me know and we'll work things out and we'll rock and roll together, brother.
That's not a problem, man. You know, my inbox is always open. So you give me a day and time and I'll let you know what my schedule looks like. But any socials or anything in particular you got that you want to go and put out there and plug?
Yeah, I'm a very simple, easy guy. It's easy to find me on social media at RingScoops, pretty much on all the socials, even ones that are very controversial. I'll sign up to make an account just so I can grab the name. May not be active on it, but RingScoops. Another thing that was add out there, RingScoops. I have a U.S. trademark on the name, so that's how official I am with RingScoops. That's why there's that little symbol right there on my name. But
speaking of, I got to remember to trademark my name.
It's very helpful to do it. Very, very helpful to do it. It adds a huge multiple layers of protection.
After we're done this, I got to hit you up on that.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. Next month, I'm actually going to be filing for 2 more trademarks pretty soon.
We'll keep that hush hush for now.
Oh yeah, obviously.
We'll keep that hush hush for now.
Yeah, little Joe Pesci hush hush. Yeah.
Oh, man.
On the internet, don't lie.
All right, man. Thank you again for taking the time to come on. I do appreciate it. Like I said, you're welcome back anytime. You know, we could talk shop, we could talk projects. You know, this is an open show. I love hearing stories. I love having people share their stories. Thanks for taking the time to come on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.